number one ghetto boy. 248-632-PAIN, 24-hour hotline, you know? We specialize in helping auto accident victims. You feel me? Call right now. Hey. Car accidents, they ain't no fun. Know the people you can call for a hit and run. Specialize in helping auto accident victims. It don't matter, they help men, women, and children. Can't spare your wealth without your help. And they 24 hours, call them if you need help. Call for anything, it don't matter what's the reason. They helping everybody, they on deck if you need them. Say somebody hit your car and they kept going. Just call the hotline and we got help coming. They gon' pull right up like they left's coming. 248-632-PAIN, that's the best number. Yeah, make sure you call the hotline, we working 24 hours. 248-632-PAIN. You can't spend your wealth without your help, homeboy. You know? Hey, 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 hey.
Attorney put that together for you. Pay the cost that it takes to get your different clauses put in. That's giving you the kind of protections for those kinds of things that are anticipated that could go wrong. It's better to do it up front than to pay later in the back.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. We're hearing a slight echo. I'm sorry. It's kind of throwing me off. Okay, so, Tom, we got some questions for you. So let me, we had these questions for a couple of weeks, so I wanted to make sure that you answered them. Okay, I had a person email me, said, I had a car accident, I got a ticket, and I have a court date. What do I do in order not to get bad points, they said, but I think all points are bad, so. What do they do?
Absolutely. Well, first, you want to always get a lawyer to advise you. A lot of times, prosecutors, they're very, very busy. They have a lot of people in the lobby, so a lot of times they're willing to negotiate deals where you can get a certain non-moving violation that won't have points associated with it to then there not increase your insurance rates over time. So, you want to get with an attorney there. And if I can follow up with corporations, I'm going to get on a tangent.
Okay.
But, because I sue corporations for a living, so that's some problems with corporations, I think, in America, if I can just point it out, is a lot of people don't know there used to be a thing called a corporate charter. So in order to start a corporation, you had to actually have permission from the government. And then when that stopped, what happened is all the states, instead of the U.S. government, started issuing corporate charters, and then there was a race to the bottom, which basically meant, that's why you see these corporations, in like certain states, a lot of corporations will open up there, and you may wonder why. And it's because they're taking advantage of the best laws for them, which are often the worst laws for the community. And so what happened is each state started competing with itself to get corporations to open there, thus lessening regulations on corporations and causing a lot of trouble for the public good.
Wow, that's so basically with the bad points, they need to get the attorney and try to help them out. They shouldn't try to handle that on their own.
It could be more expensive to get the attorney, to be honest with you. I always recommend getting an attorney, but it's not impossible. And for something small like that, it's possible you could go down there and make a deal, and then also if you can't make a deal, you could then request an attorney. So.
Okay, so.
Usually the request for an attorney is granted if it looks like you might get jail time.
Right.
But the judge may refuse you if there's no jail time that's going to come up, if it's just going to be fees. The other thing is when you calculate how much your insurance is going to rise over the course of the next 3 years or so for a point, 2 points, 3 points, it's absolutely economical to bring an attorney on and see if he can eliminate the points, which it's a lot easier for me to get your points eliminated than it would be for you to do it yourself.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we got another question. So I'm in Michigan, and I got a subpoena to give a deposition about an auto accident that I was in. What can I expect? That's a good one.
You can expect to be there for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So dress comfortably. It's not a happy situation, You sit down there, they ask you a bunch of questions. A lot of times the defense attorneys are overly aggressive. And people think, well, if you have nothing to hide, then you should feel comfortable answering questions. That's unfortunately not how life
Right.
works. They will ask you questions in certain ways that can often mislead you or confuse you. And there's a lot of ground rules that can help you answer honestly and to the best of your advantage. So you really do need an attorney for that.
Yeah, and I was involved in a deposition before, as I stated before, and they asked me what I had did previously that day prior to the car accident, and honestly, I didn't really remember. So sometimes it's you don't remember because this was probably about I want to say over a year after the accident, more than that, and I was hospitalized after the accident. So you can say things like you just don't remember, you don't know. Don't feel forced to just say anything to fill in a blank, right?
Yes, absolutely. Guessing is the absolute worst thing you can do, and the worst thing about it is you may be trying to be helpful, right? You want to give as much information. So let's say they say, well, how fast was the car going? And you say 30 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, because in normal, in normal conversation, if you were talking to somebody, we're comfortable with, guessing. And so if you're trying to be overly helpful, but you don't really remember, and then they go get an expert and they find out the car was going 40 or 50 miles an hour, maybe, and often is the case, you weren't trying to mislead them. You were actually trying to be helpful and give as much information. But by guessing and not qualifying it as this would be my estimate or saying I
Right.
don't know, then they're going to make you look like you're a liar on the stand.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. It's better to say you don't know or something like that.
And in addition, if you just go into a soliloquy and just start talking, making conversation with them, each thing that you say may open up doors that
Right.
causes more questions. For instance, my beautiful Helen next to me said that she didn't remember what happened before the accident, and I had a question. Well, what were you doing before the accident? What did you drink?
Right.
What did you imbibe? Did you snort anything? Did you inject something?
No, I remember that. I just don't remember where I had went that day. If I went to work, what time I left. I don't remember like those things. Like I didn't remember specifically. I knew where I was coming from, but prior to that, like what time I left work that day, and I had to. All those things could be verified. So luckily I could find out when I left, but I didn't really know. You know
So
what I mean?
your attorney would be there to qualify the question that was asked by the aggressive attorney at the deposition,
Right.
and then he could put in certain objections and so forth that would cause them not to be able to use that
Right.
information until a judge.
And
is
by the
going
way,
to-
I won the case, so everything I said must have been good enough. So I mean, it was the truth. That's all I can give them. So I just encourage anybody to be honest. If you don't know, like Attorney Thomas said, don't guess or just say anything. It's best to just be honest. Or if you're not sure, just say I'm not sure. Um, Okay, the next question is if the doctor tells you that you need to return to work and you're not ready, what can you do? Like you don't feel like you're ready after a car accident and the doctor says, "Well, I don't see anything else wrong."
My advice would be get a second opinion. When you're in an auto accident, you have unlimited medical benefits for the rest of your life, and so as long as they relate to those injuries, and so that's better than most insurance plans. So
Right.
if you disagree with your doctor, you should definitely get a second opinion. I may be misquoting this because it's off the top of my head, but it was something outstanding. I believe 9 out of 10 times, according to the Mayo Clinic, when somebody got a second opinion from a doctor, it was different than the first
Wow.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying if you think about it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so maybe even a third opinion if you need one. So
Well,
with
you're going to follow the last opinion of the last doctor that you saw. And so if you have to return to work, if they tell you to return to work, let's say on Monday, but you can't get to see a doctor for a second opinion until Tuesday, I'm afraid you have to return to work or you can cause some great detriment and harm to your case.
But returning to work doesn't mean staying.
That's absolutely correct. If you can't do your job, I guess you can't do your job.
Yeah, I mean, you can go there and report and say, I'm just not feeling well, and then your appointment is the next day, and I'm just saying, you got to do what you got to do. Okay, so what if a person is hit from the rear? Now, I was told years ago that if somebody hits you from the rear, then it's their fault. So if they were hit from the rear by someone, is it their fault, the person that hit them, or?
Yeah, it's their fault.
Mhm.
They're presumed to be guilty of being negligent under the law. You can overturn that presumption through some kind of showing of evidence. I mean, I guess in a hypothetical, if you're driving on the freeway and both people are going 70 miles an hour, maybe if you stopped your car and reversed back into them, then perhaps you would be at fault. So you can overturn the presumption, but to be honest, you're supposed to always be driving at a distance safe enough to stop if something like that happens. So.
Wow.
Of course, someone from the next lane could cut off your safe braking distance, and then it would be their fault, even though they got hit in the rear.
So it's probably
However,
a
that's
few
not even
exceptions.
but Helen, that's not even a question
Mhm.
if you have your car covered by the no-fault insurance in Michigan.
Right.
Especially if you could run into the car in front of you, and like Attorney Thomas said,
Mhm.
it's presumed to be your fault, except that the law says that it's no fault. And especially so if the person that you hit doesn't
Yeah,
have
that's what's
insurance,
confusing to me. They
because
say
they're
no
not supposed
fault,
to be on the road at
but
all.
then it's your fault. I'm kind of confused.
It's whoever's the fault really lies with whoever does not have no fault insurance.
Oh,
Beyond that, then you can start looking at fault.
right.
But if I have an accident with someone that doesn't have insurance, then it's his fault.
Yeah, I
Because we
would,
wouldn't have had
guess.
that crash.
It seems
if
like
that person wasn't on the
I've only
road,
had
they
one
weren't
accident and
authorized.
he didn't have insurance. So I mean, that's bad. But okay, so if I have to take off work in the event I am in a car accident, will I lose my job? That's what someone wants to know.
So the good news is you're covered for 3 years for 85% of your wages
Mhm.
if you are in an auto accident and it stops you from going to work. So that should cover you for a good 3 years. So you could also consult an attorney for medical leave and those areas of law, which wouldn't be my area of expertise. But for at least 3 years, you can get 85% of your lost wages.
Okay,
If
so
you're dri-
okay.
if you're driving as an incident of your job, let's say you're a bus driver or something like that, or you're running errands on your job, maybe you have to go to the accountant and pick up the payroll checks or something like that, then that would fall under workers' compensation,
Right.
and they wouldn't be able to, they shouldn't fire you under those circumstances. But the common sense of it is your employer didn't have the accident, you did, and so now
Right.
you can't do your job. That's not his fault, and if he wants to, he can terminate you.
Yeah, that's what's going to be my next question. How long can you be off work when you're in a car accident before your job is taken away?
Well, so I mean, again, you're going to get those wages for 3 years. As Robert said about workers' comp, so there's all different scenarios, right? So if it's just an auto accident, then you get your 3 years at 85%. If it's workers' comp, if you're driving at the job, there's a fee schedule that the state puts out that says how much your job will owe you if you're not able to return to work. And there's even, I believe, a 2-year retraining program. Let's say you can't drive again. But there's a multitude of different issues.
Okay.
You might have a contract, specifically a work contract with your job that protects you. You may be a member of a union. So those would be very case-specific issues.
Right. Okay. So, depending if you need any more information, please call 1-844-TOM-FIGHTS, and he would be glad to answer your questions on that. But it's mostly specific to your situation. Okay. So, say person is driving and they're drunk, and they have a child in the car, but they were in an accident and someone hit them. But they were drinking, but the accident was not their fault. Can their child be taken away?
Who's drunk? The person.
The person that has the child in the car was drunk, but the other person hit them, and it was their fault.
So, well,
You're not
They're
supposed to be
still
drinking
they're
and
still
driving.
breaking the law, so
Exactly.
they're still gonna get the drinking and driving ticket. They're also probably still gonna get the child endangerment charge.
Mhm.
Now, if you're just talking purely auto, whoever's so again, as Robert said, there's no fault. So
Mhm.
you get free medical benefits for the rest of your life, even if you were drunk and you drove into somebody. You get 85% of your lost wages for 3 years. You be entitled to
So
if you
that doesn't
qualify.
depend, like if you're, but do they waive those benefits for certain people? Like if, say, if you were drinking and driving, or
No, it's irregardless of fault. Now they only
okay,
waive them, as Robert said, if you're driving without insurance, because
okay,
you're breaking
yes,
that law. But
right,
the government's realized that roughly 50,000 people a year die in auto accidents, and just imagine how many are injured. And so they realized, this isn't something that we want to blame on somebody. We just want everybody to get the medical treatment.
hmm
Same thing with workers' comp. It's not if even if you're negligent at your job, most of the time you're still covered because that's just the way it is. We don't want people walking around not getting medical treatment. That being
right,
said, there's a second lawsuit, and that's a pain and suffering lawsuit,
hmm
a third party case. And
okay,
so, even though you're entitled to your no fault benefits, if somebody was at fault and they hit you, then you can sue the at fault driver for your pain and suffering.
wow. So
And
you
there's
still
another.
sue their insurance, not them as an individual, right? Or can you?
So, technically, you sue them as an individual, but their insurance indemnifies them up to an amount of their coverage. So, let's say they have $20,000 worth of coverage. Their insurance company will pay up to that $20,000, but then if your claim is more, they could be liable.
Wow,
And then there's the criminal component
right,
because you're drunk and you have you said a child.
yeah,
So you're talking about anyone under the age of
16,
16. The child endangerment does carry a penalty that can be as much as 10 years in jail. So enjoy those PIP benefits while you're in jail. It's probably better not to be driving and endangering a child's life while you're drunk.
right. I would totally agree. That's something that hopefully you got out of that situation okay, because that's not a good one, and hopefully you learn from that because you definitely shouldn't be drinking. If you are going to drink and drive, then that's your personal choice. You should only involve yourself, though. I wouldn't involve others and your children and family. I'd leave them at home for that one. So, but in the event that you are in a car accident or if you have any questions for our attorneys here, you can reach Thomas Courts at 1-844-TOM-FIGHTS and also attorney Robert Harris as well. And they would be glad to help you in the event that you're in. And the thing I really want you to know is that if you are in a car accident, you are probably scared, you're probably afraid, you probably don't know what to do. So it's important to just have someone to talk to. It doesn't matter if you go to them, for their services, but you need to have somebody to talk to that is going to be trustworthy. And I know that these gentlemen here, they're going to give you good advice. And I wouldn't have them, be hosting the show if they wouldn't, if I didn't believe that. So it's important that you definitely contact someone that can help you in the event, because this is a serious legal issue. This is very serious. And it's important that you do it right from the very beginning. Isn't that right, Thomas? Because people don't know that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, from the point of when the police come or when the ambulance come, you need to know these things. So it's important that you contact a professional. Just like if you got your arm hanging off the limb, you're not gonna just go home and tell somebody to fix it in the kitchen. You're gonna go to the hospital. And so when you're dealing with legal issues like this, then you need to go to professionals. And I recommend that you call 1-844-TOM-FIGHTS. And if you have any question, we're here every Thursday at 1 o'clock to answer your questions. But like I said, you can continue emailing me at Real Talk with Helen at I got so many emails. Outlook.com. Real Talk with Helen at Outlook.com. Or you can reach me at 248-805-2000. And yeah, if we're here every week to answer your questions. So we're investing time in you. Please take that time and invest in us if you're in a car accident.
Now, if you've got regardless of the problem that you have, whether it's business, uh, criminal, civil, or personal injury, the number to call is
844
1-844
Tom Fights.
Tom Fights. That would get a hold of me, Robert Harris, or Tom.
Yeah.
Tom, last show you weren't here, and I was putting out the big accolades for you. I was telling them that you were all great.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
he was really he was digging it in. I said, oh my God.
So, are you as good as I say you are?
We'll have to let the results decide, Robert, but I always appreciate it.
Yes, he's very humble, so that's a good way to be. Well, we thank you guys for watching Attorneys Us. Like I said, we're here every Thursday at 1 o'clock, and we will see you next week. Thank you, and have a blessed day.
Yeah, number one ghetto boy. 248-632-PANG, 24-hour hotline, you know? We specialize in helping auto accident victims. You feel me? Call right now. Hey. Car accidents, they ain't no fun. Know the people you can call for a hit and run. Specialize in helping auto accident victims. It don't matter, they help men, women, and children. Can't spare your wealth without your help. And they 24 hours, call them if you need help. Call for anything, it don't matter what's the reason. They helping everybody, they on deck if you need them. Say somebody hit your car and they kept going. Just call the hotline and we got help coming. They gon' pull right up like they left coming. 248-632-PANG, that's the best number. Yeah, make sure you call the hotline, we working 24 hours. 248-632-PANG. You can't spend your wealth without your help, homeboy. You know? Hey, 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 hey.